So there's so much more to that week. It is a festival of life and outdoor winter activity and just family and friends and a boatload of fun. And so why wouldn't you just keep doing it?
Welcome to the Birch Legacies podcast. We are sharing stories celebrating the motivation, the perseverance, and the lifestyle choices necessary to reach the status of Birchlegger. That is, skiers who have completed 20 or more Birkies, Korteloppets, or a combination of both. We would love to hear from Birchleggers young and old who have a story to tell about what keeps them coming back year after year. Information about appearing on this podcast is in the podcast notes. Hi, folks. Welcome back to Birch Legacies, and I have a special treat for listeners today. These two gentlemen reached out to me as a pair. In other words, they come as a team. Mike Sun and Scott Clements are with me, and they are longtime friends, and their Birkie history goes way back and much of it together. And so they wanted to be on together, and I was really excited about that, to have two guests at the same time, because I think for a lot of folks, you have that buddy, that friend that got you involved, and the two of you have challenged each other. And through all the years, things change, but oftentimes these long-term friendships are a big part of the Birkie experience. So welcome you guys to the podcast.
Good to be here, John.
Good to be here.
And why don't you introduce yourselves, each of you, and just kind of tell a little bit about yourselves, where you live, what you did for and do for a career.
Oh, yeah. Mike Sun, and I live in Wayzata, Minnesota. But I also have a place where I spend about half my time in Hayward, outside of Hayward, and closer to Clam Lake, actually. What I did for my career was I was in marketing, worked for a number of companies in Minneapolis, Northwest Airlines, most recently with a company called ICF Next, where I was VP partner of strategy. And we consulted for a number of Fortune 500 companies and helped them with their marketing efforts, primarily digital and loyalty marketing, plus CRM, if you know what that is.
How about you, Scott?
Scott Clements. I live in Bloomington, Minnesota, and we also have a place up in the Hayward area. We're actually really fortunate to be about 5 minutes or so from the trail crossing at Double O, and that's been really nice. I spent my career in construction, going back into the high school days as a laborer, and after college moved out to Colorado. Worked as a carpenter for a while, and then started into the management level. Mike and I both graduated from University of Wisconsin-Madison in 81. Then I went on to get my master's at Colorado State in 86. And then coincidentally, Mike and I had both been living out west and moved back then to the Twin Cities, where I spent my entire career in construction management, primarily in multifamily housing, apartments, condos, a lot of senior housing, and things like that. And I retired just a year ago. And what Mike had said, he spends about half his time up at their place. That was my intent and hope, but I haven't been able to figure that out yet. So not up there quite as much as I'd like, but working on it.
It's always fun to hear kind of how people have spent their time when they're not on snow. And you guys talked about being, did you know each other in college then at Madison?
Yeah, we were in the same fraternity in Madison, so we go back to about 1977, I think, since we have known each other.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a long time.
If I could, Mike and I knew each other as fraternity brothers, but we kind of discovered each other's love for cross-country skiing one very snowy blizzard night in Madison, and we both we pulled out our cross-country skis and skied together down Langdon Street, which was fraternity of Madison, and we actually skied into a couple of sorority houses, and that was the start of Mike's and my alter egos, Sven and Ole. I'm Sven Svensson, and Mike's Ole Olsen. So, yeah.
Classic. Okay.
I was going
to say, do you remember it the same, Mike?
Yeah, I try to block some memories out. That might be one of them, but yeah.
That's burned in for me.
Who had the idea to ski a Birkie then in the first place?
I think it was probably a joint decision. I had been skiing for a long time before that. I grew up in outside of Kimberly, Wisconsin, near Lake Winnebago, and we lived out and had a woods around our house. And so I just kind of started cross-country skiing in our backyard. We didn't have cross-country skis, but we did have water skis. And to me, it made more sense to have a bigger base. So I would cruise through the woods when I was 12 and make a trail. The next year, I got cross-country skis from my aunt, and then I started to really get into it because I had real skis and entered some races in Appleton. And then I just fell in love with the sport, had a track set up in our front yard, and every night I'd go out with the AM radio blaring and do loops. And when always had heard about the Birkie, and it was on my list of things to do, and I think we were probably in the bar room talking about things we ought to do, and we said, let's sign up for this thing. In those days, it was $75 to enter the race. We paid that amount. Now, $75 doesn't sound like much, but back then, I think you have to adjust that for inflation. It's about 2.85 times. So that was about $200, which was a lot of money for us.
Oh, for sure.
To head up there.
I hadn't thought about that, so maybe I should stop complaining about what the price is now, because it's really ultimately maybe about the same, as it was way back then. I do remember a little differently, and this might be a common theme for Mike and I, but I remember that Mike Zimbrick of the Zimbrick Auto Empire in the Madison area might have suggested it to us, and Mike and I got all amped up about it and started doing training out in Blackhawk and Sauk City and some things like that. Mike Zimbrick never ended up doing the race. But I grew up in the Chicago suburbs, and so there was no such thing at all as cross-country skiing.
Right. My
mom bought me a pair of cross-country skis for Christmas one year, I think junior or senior year in high school. So I did not have the background that Mike did going in, but I was a cross-country runner and things like that, so it was kind of a natural extension for me.
Yeah, and so then you said you did your first one in 81, is that right?
It was an interesting year, John, because that year there was, the regular annual meltdown, and they actually, the planned weekend for it was effectively canceled for the citizen racers. And they created a short loop system up at Telemark for the Korteloppets skiers. But then right after that happened, and they had a terrible time, but did the international skiers came over and did that. And then they had a dump of snow, and I don't know how they communicated it, but we went up a week later for the citizen race. Is that right, Mike? Am I making stuff up?
I think that's the way I remember it. I think back in those days, it was on the World Cup circuit. So it was a World Cup.
Yes, race. It wasn't Korteloppet, it was World Cup. And
there was, not Korteloppet, but World Cup.
Yeah.
And so they actually, a French guy, I remember, ran it and won it in at the bottom of Mount Telemark. And it was about 40 or 50 degrees that day, so it looked like a slog. But then March 10th, was the second after that dump of snow that Scott.
Yeah, it was 2 weeks later, right?
Yep.
Yeah, and that day, if you, I was there too, and my recollection is that day it melted as we skied.
Yes.
And we had snow, and we couldn't have done it the next day because we finished and it was mid 40s at least.
I'm glad you brought that up because that really complicated it, because I think it started out in the single digits on Saturday morning.
Yes. Yeah.
And then it rose to in the 40s by the end.
Yep.
So whatever wax we put on, and we didn't know what we were doing in those days. It was all classic. Was worthless by about 15K probably.
What killed that day, and it was crazy to go from single digits and then end up as it did, and it ended at the park on Lake Hayward. There was not a Main Street finish back, and they had the famous blueberry soup. But I remember rolling into a aid station, or at I don't know, there's probably 5K left or something like that, and my wax wasn't doing anything, and I pulled into this aid station and I said, I need wax, and they handed me a tube of Clister. And I was like, what the heck is this? And they kind of just demonstrated what I should do. And I gobbed it onto the bottom of my skis, put my skis back on, took about 3 strides and skied through a bunch of straw that they had laid down in a mud puddle and all this straw just stuck to the bottom of my skis. I had to stop and scrape off all the straw, and got back on the trail and finished, but not well, and well behind my good friend Mike, by the way.
The logistics of the place were different then too, and the busing and how you got there and all that. I was going to ask you about that. Your college students, what kind of slapdash method did you have to get up there and place to stay and all that?
I don't know how I convinced my dad to let me borrow his 1974 Mustang II Fastback. So we drove up on Friday morning, and we said, we have never done this before. We've never skied this far. So why don't we ski the entire course on Friday morning to see if we can do it or not? Which,
wait a minute,
was incredibly stupid.
Well, so stupid college kids, John.
We skied a little bit, and we didn't do the whole course. We skied around. It was super fun in our knickers. And then, but the other thing is, I think I had $25 or $35 with me for everything, gas, food, but we didn't have any lodging. We just went up there. We thought we'll just figure something out. We roamed around Telmark Lodge after we did our little skiing on Friday night. We saw Marty Hall. He was giving wax advice, and stopped in all the bars. It was really, Tony Wise put on an incredible show. I'm sure you remember in those days.
Yeah.
There were little places to hang out all over the place. And then we realized, we ought to find some place because we need a good night's sleep. I have no idea where we ended up, but it was like a bunkhouse, right, Scott? I think.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah.
And they had a little waxing room, and in those days they didn't have irons. They had corks, but also torches that you would.
Yeah. Because the wood skis could handle a torch. Yeah.
But we had plastic based skis, but we were living that, just a few years before when we were all wood based, still using the torch.
Yeah, you had to be quick with the torch. If you had those plastic bases, you had to be real quick with the torch.
Yeah, and you kind of had to know what you were doing, which I didn't, but the skis worked, I guess you could say.
Yeah. But so then this kind of set you both on a path. And so, talk us through some of your individual histories and your history together in coming back year after year to do this.
Well, I moved back before Scott did. I did my second Birkie was in about 1985, I think, which was another memorable year where that year was one of the first years that skating was becoming popular, especially with the best skiers. I was in wave 3, I remember. My bib was 3,300. Don't ask me why Birkie skiers remember those kinds of details, but I was on classic skis, and it was a warm year, so the track was mushy. The tracks weren't set. By the time I started skiing, all the tracks were gone. The skaters had destroyed. And I had Clister on. It was, it was a brutal year. And then Scott moved back. I didn't do it for a few years. Scott moved back. He did another one. So there's only been 2 in that period of time that we haven't done together. Otherwise, we've done all of them together or at the same time.
At the same time, yeah. Yeah. So talk us through a couple of the other memorable Birkies for you.
Mike, can I don't know if, I'm guessing this will be on one of Mike's, top 10, but, in 2007, Mike and I both became Birchleggers, and we had planned, I think for probably a couple of years beforehand, that when we hit 20 on the American Birkebeiner, we were going to go over and ski the Norwegian Birkebeiner together.
Oh yeah, cool.
And so in the spring of 2007, we did that. And we brought along another friend of ours who Mike and I had introduced and got into skiing the Birkie. But the three of us went over to Norway in the spring of 2007, and that was a very memorable year for the Norwegian Birkie. It was number 80 or in the 80s or something like that, and it was the first time that the race had effectively been canceled. So we skied all the way, or went all the way over to Norway to ski it, and didn't really get to do it, but we had a great time and got some other good skiing in.
Yeah. Was it wind or was it cold or what was it?
It was wind. Yeah.
Wind.
Yeah.
I know that plateau there is very windy and.
Well, it was a bluebird day down at the start, John, and I don't know what wave we were in, Mike, but we were all waiting for our turn to go, and they'd sent off several waves, and then there came an announcement over the loudspeaker in Norwegian, of course, and it was kind of this collective, poop.
Yeah.
And people just started taking their skis off, and Mike and I are standing there going, what the heck's going on? And somebody, told us that, they just canceled the race. And, shortly thereafter, the people that had started, they turned them around and sent them back down. So there was, as we're kind of standing around this stream of skiers coming back into the start area.
So let's talk a little bit about so you guys are staying in your own individual cabins now with family and yourselves, or?
Yeah. My wife, Lori, and I, we bought a cabin, a project, as I like to call it, I think 25 years ago. And so that got us out of various lodging accommodations. We've stayed at the townhomes up at Telemark. We've stayed in some pretty ragged places over the years. We have all slept on the hallway in the school before. But we got our cabin, and that kind of became Birkie Central for Mike's family and mine and a couple others for a few years. And then Mike and Carolyn bought a place 10 minutes from ours, which has been really nice. And Mike and his group kind of moved out of our place for a Birkie weekend. And then another good friend I mentioned, Tom, who went to Norway with us, they bought a place up north of Cable. And so our core group of families kind of split up and have their own groups coming along. And then, I've got friends from all over that come in from Colorado and Utah and stay with us. And now that my kids are starting to do it, I might have to boot out the friends here in another year or two. So we'll see. Yeah.
Put an addition on.
Mike traditionally has a kind of a big Birkie bash Saturday night at his place, which we had used to go to, but it's gotten so huge we don't fit in anymore, I don't think.
Mike, do you have thoughts on that?
No, we it's kind of dwindled down a little bit. We used to have, 20 or 25 people to stay there, and it's not a very big cabin. But a couple of years ago, it got a little out of hand. So we put some restrictions on it. And
that would be the younger generation, right?
Younger generation.
It wasn't you. It was, yeah.
But it's super fun, and it's all people that we've kind of gotten into the Birkie through our enthusiasm, and it's really been great.
Yeah, isn't that fun? I mean, it is interesting how your enthusiasm and the stories you tell afterwards when you come back the next next day to work or the next week, and people just kind of go, "Hey, that sounds so fun that I'd like to experience it myself." And I'm sure people can relate to that idea. Walk us through a little bit of the kind of like, what do you guys do year round? Do you do other things? Are you bike riders, you runners? What kind of things do you do to prep or to be ready for the Birkie?
I would say this. Mike and I both cycle. In the summer, Mike probably does a lot more miles than I do on the bike. But, we've both taken up gravel riding. And as you probably know, John, the gravel up in that area is just phenomenal. I mean, you can explore all over every day, something different. Somehow or another, I got into trail running some years back, and I started doing the Birkie trail run in the fall, a number of other things. So trail running seems to be my off-season work. If you can't, maybe I shouldn't call it work because I really do enjoy it. And then about 5 years ago, I started doing some tours with a adventure running company out of Duluth, Minnesota. They run trail running tours around the country and a few in Europe.
And then what do you like to do off season, Mike?
Yeah, like Scott said, I mostly bike. Lately, I do mostly gravel biking, a little bit of mountain biking, although my mountain bike fell out of the back of my pickup truck last September, so I probably have to get a new one now.
Oh, darn.
On Highway 77. But that's it. I try and run, but my legs can't take it anymore, so I don't do much of that.
Tell us a little bit about kind of like for you, each individually. Why don't you take a minute or two each and just talk about, what the meaning, what the Birkie has kind of built in your lives, how it's affected your family, and kind of the way you think about your year and staying fit and those kind of things.
We've been doing this for such a long time, John, and as you have too, and. For me, it's an analogy that I'm guessing that a lot of Birkie skiers kind of feel as well. And I look at the Birkie as sort of a river flowing through my life. Mike and I started doing this when we were, young and dumb college kids that just went up there on a lark.
Mm-hmm.
And we skied to get Mike was in Arizona, but I was in Colorado, but then he ended up in Colorado also. And we skied together out there up in the mountains, did races and other events and kind of took up skate skiing a little bit. Both ended up moving back here. So, our paths have run parallel for a long time, and we've brought all these other family and friends into the sport. I think Mike and I were maybe the only ones of any of our friend group that was doing this kind of thing.
Yeah.
But this river flowing through my life from when we were just kids through, finding our life partners and getting them into skiing, and then, bringing more friends into it and finding homes up there that we could share with more friends and family and and then having kids. But to see this next generation coming into the sport and loving maybe more so the community of it than
Yeah.
the actual hard effort of skiing a Birkie. But all three of my kids have taken to it. And that's just really cool to see that legacy lives on and the river keeps flowing.
Yeah.
And I just became a grandfather a couple of months ago for the first time, and they've already, we we sent them out a Thule chariot, out to Bend, Oregon, where
Yeah.
he lives, and they've already had my little 5-month-old grandson out on the ski trails,
That's good.
riding in the lap of luxury. But someday, they'll strap on some skis and it'll be another generation to
That's
come.
awesome.
So that's really how I look at it. It's just, it's just such a part of your life, and it does keep you focused on staying healthy throughout the year because you always know come February, you better be at least a little bit ready or it's going to
Hmm.
be a long, rough day.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. So thank you.
I think it really is. It becomes a lifestyle, right? It becomes part of your identity, and I think in that identity is where the loyalty exists to keep doing it. Either that or obsessive compulsive disorder, which is a little bit of it too.
Yeah.
Um, my whole family does it. My sons and daughter were both early on the cross country ski team at Wayzata High School. And then my daughter and my middle son both moved away from it. My daughter played lacrosse until she didn't, and then she raced alpine. But then later on, they came back to it, because it's such a lifelong sport, right? Or
Yeah.
activity. It's
Yeah.
those lacrosse, you can't really play past high school, maybe college.
Right.
So they're really into it now. My middle son is working with David Norris. He lives out in Colorado, who won the Birkie a couple times and is helping him get better and train better. And my daughter is racing this weekend with me, which is all really fun to do. And I think that's where my attention has shifted from less about my performance, which as hard as I
Yeah.
try, it keeps getting worse,
Yeah.
but to to the experience, right? Like it changes, but it's still just as meaningful
Hmm.
and just as much fun. And to see other people embrace it is really a great experience too.
Oh, just for the record, I think we talked about this off air, but how many is this for you guys?
It's a 38. This will be 38.
So you either, from your own families, but from your friends and things like that, how do you see the longevity, and in terms of, I often ask the same question about, what do you say to people who have 10 or 15 and want that purple bib? Like you said, you had a goal to get to the purple bib so you could go to Norway. What do you say to the folks that are they want to have that Birchlegger status at some time?
There's years when you don't want to do it, right? You're out of shape, you're sick. There's other kinds of conflicts, but I think you just stick with it. You just do it, right? And I
Hmm.
think that's it. My oldest son would be on his 11th this year. He made 10 last year, but for some other reasons. He lives in Denver too now. He can't do it. And I know he's disappointed, but, I think, you miss one or two, but just keep doing them.
Yeah, and John, I just find it fascinating that anybody who's done 5 or 6 or something like that would ever quit. It just does become part of it, and you it just becomes part of your life. And so it's winter, so I got to start skiing again, and hopefully you like skiing a little bit.
Yeah.
And then but you always got the end of February in the back of your mind. And then, if you embrace some of the other the Birkie has become so much more than just, a race on Saturday, obviously.
Yeah.
But our family, we've started to participate. I've done the Birkie with one of our Bernese mountain dogs several times. My son's brought his dog up and, done the Birkie with me. We've been doing the giant ski every year for
fun.
a few years. And, so there's so much more to that week. It is a festival of life and outdoor winter activity and just family and friends and a boatload of fun. And so why wouldn't you just keep doing it? And if you got that, you get that purple bib, and then you can become an Uberlegger like Mike and I did some few years back, and people start to recognize that, and you're on the trail, and they, and they're like, "Way to go, Uberlegger!"
Yeah, it's really
just,
cool.
It's sort of self-fulfilling, prophecy that you're just going to keep going until you can't anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can I just add one other thing, and that is that people who haven't done it as long as we have don't recognize how much it's improved. The whole experience is just incredible. The infrastructure, the huts at every 5 or 7K or whatever the distance is along the way. I mean, the Birkie team has done such an amazing job of improving the whole race experience, the whole Birkie trail, and they keep improving things. They keep having more events. So, Ben and his team have done a great job, and my hat's off to them.
But part of the memories of the old ones is how tough it was. How the logistics were tough, and the buses were stalled. Out on the highway waiting for their turn.
And that trail was like two tracks wide.
Oh
too.
yeah, absolutely.
It's a super highway now. People that haven't been doing it for a long time just think this is how it's always been, and it was just a simple little trail winding through the woods for a long time.
Absolutely,
it's really quite simple.
Yeah. It's hard to believe. Any final thoughts? Any other things you guys each would like to say to wrap this up?
I'm going to let Mike finish, but I just want to say it's, as I said before, it's been such a big part of my life, and I'm grateful to have a friend like Mike that's kept me going in it.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't see each other as much as we used to, but what we do know that we've got a common bond in the American Birkebeiner, and it'll always be there. And someday Mike will maybe spread my ashes on the Birkie Trail. That's the plan anyway.
I just think it's a great experience. And I think anybody who gets started with it knows that. We've gotten a lot of people involved who are one and out. I understand that, and I respect their decision. It's just not for them.
Yeah.
But most people just keep coming back for more. And I don't know why. I'm one of them. Mm-hmm. But I just love skiing, and I love the Birkie.
Yeah, I think there's some movie that said, "I can't quit you." That's kind of how I feel about the Birkie. It's like, okay, how am I going to ever stop doing this? Gosh, gentlemen, thank you. Like I kind of expected, I like I said at the beginning, I know that friendships like the two of yours and mine with my friends, and I know they exist all over the Birkie experience, and I knew it would be fun to have two people on together, and the dynamic is obviously one of mutual respect and caring, and it's great to have you guys on, and I look forward to seeing you. Hopefully we can run into each other at the Birkie this year. It's a few weeks away, and I'm already looking at those long-term weather reports, hoping it isn't below zero.
Exactly.
It's been a rough week or two. Yeah, John, this has been great. Thank you. And Mike, thanks for finding this. I've been listening, John, to your podcasts, and I've got a 3-hour drive coming up ahead of me, so I'll be picking up a couple of those on the way. And
well, thanks, guys. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thank you.
All right. Take care.
Thanks for listening. Please check out the podcast notes to see links to the Birch Leggings Club and the Birkie website. If you've skied a combination of 20 Birkies and or Korties, I encourage you to join the Birch Leggings Club. If you'd like to tell your Birkie story, please contact me, John Peterson, at my email listed in the podcast notes or by filling out the guest application form linked there. Please subscribe to our program wherever you get your podcasts and leave a review. You can also text us directly from your phone or computer using the quick link in the notes to let us know how we are doing.